The fluorescent lights of Sterling and Wright Marketing Agency buzzed overhead as I sat through another condescending team meeting. I'm Alex Chen, and for the past 3 years, I've been living a double life that was about to dramatically collide with itself. And now, Mark, our creative director, announced with his usual smirk, "Let's review everyone's client acquisition numbers for the quarter." He paused dramatically at my desk. "Alex, I notice you haven't brought in any new accounts. Too busy with your, what do you call it? Your digital consultancy." Scattered laughter rippled through the conference room. I kept my face carefully neutral, even as I felt Jessica from accounts rolling her eyes behind me. They'd all seen my simple website, or at least the decoy site I created specifically for my coworkers to find. Basic web design, small business consultancy, nothing that would raise eyebrows or questions. If they only knew. What Mark and the others didn't realize was that while they were mocking my little side project, I was running one of the most exclusive digital marketing agencies in Asia. Phantom Digital wasn't just a consultancy, it was the secret weapon behind some of the biggest market disruptions in the past 2 years. The truth was, I needed Sterling and Wright far more than they needed me. Not for the modest salary or the mediocre health insurance, but for something far more valuable. Market intelligence. Every day, I watched our competitors stumble through digital transformation, making the same mistakes over and over. Every failed campaign, every mishandled social media crisis, every tone-deaf attempt to go viral. They were all lessons for my real business. "Actually," I said, keeping my voice deliberately hesitant, "I've been thinking about taking on more responsibility here. Learning from the experts." The flattery worked. Mark's smirk widened into a patronizing smile. "That's the spirit, Alex. Leave the entrepreneurship dreams to people who understand business." More chuckles around the room. I noticed Sandra, our CEO, frowning slightly at Mark's tone, but she said nothing. If they had access to my real client lists, they wouldn't be laughing. The Chan Martinez IPO that dominated financial news last month. Phantom Digital orchestrated their entire market positioning. The viral campaign that turned Nexus Beverages into a Gen Z sensation. That was us. But as far as Sterling and Wright knew, I was just another middling account manager with unrealistic dreams. The meeting droned on, but my mind was elsewhere. In exactly 23 minutes, Victoria Wong, CEO of Meridian Enterprises, would walk through those doors. Meridian was the white whale Sterling and Wright had been chasing for months, a tech conglomerate on the verge of a major international expansion. What my colleagues didn't know was that Meridian had already signed a $30 million contract. Not with Sterling and Wright, but with Phantom Digital. I checked my phone discreetly. A message from Kai, my actual creative director. "Final presentation ready." Victoria loved the mock-ups. She's going to enjoy this. The thing about success is that it's surprisingly easy to hide if you know what you're doing. My real office occupied the entire top floor of a sleek building in the central business district, but as far as Sterling and Wright knew, I lived in a modest apartment and drove a second-hand Honda. The designer clothes and luxury watches stayed hidden away except for client meetings that never took place anywhere near my day job. And finally, Sandra announced our most exciting news. In 10 minutes, we'll be presenting our pitch to Meridian Enterprises. This could be the biggest account in Sterling and Wright's history. Mark straightened his tie, practically preening. "Alex, you can sit this one out. We need our A-team for this presentation." I nodded meekly, gathering my papers as if preparing to leave. But I knew exactly how the next hour would unfold, down to the minute. After all, I had scripted it. The conference room door opened, and conversations hushed as Victoria Wong entered. She was exactly as I remember from our last meeting, impeccably dressed, radiating quiet authority. Her eyes swept the room, pausing briefly on me with the slightest hint of a smile. "Ms. Wong," Sandra stepped forward. "We're honored to." Before we begin, Victoria interrupted smoothly, "I'd like to discuss your digital strategy, particularly your approach to Asian markets." Mark jumped in, eager to demonstrate his expertise. "Of course, we've prepared an extensive analysis of regional social media trends and—" Actually, Victoria cut him off. "I'm more interested in hearing from Alex Chen." The room went silent. Mark's face froze in confusion. I don't understand." "Alex is just a junior account manager." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Is that so? That's not what my board of directors would say." She turned to face me directly. Or should I call you by your other title? Founder and CEO of Phantom Digital. The silence in the room turned deafening. I could practically hear the gears turning in my colleagues' heads as they tried to process what they were hearing. Mark's face had gone from confused to pale. I don't, Sandra started, then stopped, looking between Victoria and me with growing realization. I stood up slowly, straightening my posture and letting the carefully maintained facade of mediocrity fall away. It was amazing how a simple change in bearing could transform a person. Perhaps, I said, my voice carrying a confidence they'd never heard before, we should discuss why Meridian Enterprises has already chosen their digital marketing partner for the Asia-Pacific expansion. The room erupted in chaos. Mark spluttered incoherently while Jessica dropped her tablet with a clatter. Sandra just stared, her mouth slightly open. But this wasn't just about shocking my colleagues or enjoying their reactions. This was business, and I had orchestrated this moment for a very specific purpose. Ms. Wang, I continued, shall we show them what real digital transformation looks like? Victoria nodded, a slight smile playing at her lips. By all means, Alex. After all, that's why I'm really here today. I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to Kai. Execute phase 2. The next few minutes would change everything, not just for me, but for everyone in that room. The carefully constructed walls between my two lives were about to come crashing down, and the fallout would reshape the entire industry. But first, I had a presentation to give. The conference room screens flickered to life, displaying not Sterling and Wright's carefully prepared pitch, but a sleek presentation with Phantom Digital's distinctive branding. The real one, not the simple website my colleagues had mocked. Let's start, I said, my voice carrying an authority that made Mark sink lower in his chair, with what digital transformation actually means in today's market. The first slide showed Phantom Digital's client roster, a list that made Sandra audibly gasp. Global tech giants, luxury brands, emerging market leaders, names that Sterling and Wright could only dream of landing. Over the past 2 years, I continued, Phantom Digital has quietly revolutionized how Asian companies approach international markets. We don't just run campaigns, we architect complete digital ecosystems. Victoria nodded approvingly as I pulled up case studies that had become legendary in the industry, campaigns that my colleagues had actually studied and tried to replicate, never knowing they worked with their creator every day. The Chan Martinez IPO campaign. Mark's voice was barely a whisper. That was you. Among others, I replied, switching to a slide showing market impact statistics. But today isn't about past achievements. It's about the future of digital marketing in Asia, and why Meridian Enterprises chose Phantom Digital for their expansion. Chose. Sandra finally found her voice. But we were supposed to pitch today. Victoria stepped forward. Actually, Sandra, this meeting was never about pitching to Meridian. It's about something much more significant. She turned to me. Alex, shall we tell them? I nodded, sending another text to Kai. The screens updated to show a new logo, a merger of Phantom Digital and Sterling and Wright's branding. What you're looking at, I explained to my stunned colleagues, is the future of both our companies. Meridian Enterprises isn't just my client, they're also my investment partners. And today, we're offering to acquire Sterling and Wright. The chaos that erupted was exactly what I had anticipated. Mark jumped to his feet, face red with a mixture of anger and embarrassment. Jessica started frantically Googling Phantom Digital on her phone, her eyes widening at each new discovery. Sandra just sat there, processing the implications. This is ridiculous, Mark sputtered. You're just a junior account manager. You can't possibly. Actually, Victoria interrupted. Alex's company generated more revenue last quarter than Sterling and Wright has in the past 3 years combined. The question isn't whether this acquisition can happen. It's whether you want to be part of what comes next. I pulled up the next slide, showing my vision for the merged companies. Sterling and Wright has something valuable. Decades of traditional marketing experience and established client relationships. What it lacks is true digital innovation capability. Together, we could create something unprecedented. But why? Sandra asked quietly. Why work here all this time if you were already successful? It was the question I'd been waiting for. Because true digital transformation isn't just about technology or campaigns. It's about understanding how traditional businesses think, what makes them resist change, and how to bridge that gap. Every day here taught me something valuable about why established agencies struggle with digital evolution. I moved to the final part of the presentation, the offer. Every current employee of Sterling and Wright will have a place in the merged company, with improved compensation and benefits. But I looked directly at Mark. The culture of condescension and resistance to innovation ends today. The numbers on the screen made several people gasp. The acquisition offer was more than generous. It was transformative. Sandra's hands trembled slightly as she looked at the potential value of her shares under the deal. I don't understand, Jessica said, finally looking up from her phone. The Nexus Beverages campaign. The Asian market expansion strategies we've been trying to replicate. That was all coming from the person we've been mocking. Ironic, isn't it? Victoria commented dryly. While you were all dismissing Alex's little side business, Phantom Digital was revolutionizing digital marketing across Asia. Perhaps a lesson about assumptions and appearances. Mark had turned an interesting shade of pale. The Thompson account, he whispered. Last month, when they suddenly switched agencies, they went to you, didn't they? I nodded. Along with 6 other major clients who were frustrated with outdated digital strategies. But this isn't about revenge or proving points. It's about building something better. I pulled up the final slides, my vision for the future. A digital marketing powerhouse that combines Sterling and Wright's traditional strength with Phantom Digital's innovation. Teams reorganized around actual talent rather than office politics. A culture that valued results over appearances. The choice is yours, I announced. You can either be part of this transformation, or you can compete against it. But either way, it's happening. Sandra stood up slowly. I'd like to see the full proposal, she said, her business instincts finally overriding her shock. Of course, I replied, nodding to Victoria, who produced the detailed acquisition documents. Take your time reviewing everything. But remember, this offer is exclusive to today's meeting. The next few hours were a blur of questions, negotiations, and gradual acceptance of the new reality. Mark left halfway through, unable to handle the complete reversal of power dynamics. Others stayed, increasingly excited as they understood the opportunities the merger presented. By evening, the preliminary agreements were signed. Sterling and Wright would become part of Phantom Digital, maintaining its brand for traditional clients while undergoing a complete digital transformation. As the lawyers wrapped up the paperwork, Sandra pulled me aside. Why didn't you just start your own agency from scratch? She asked. Why buy us? I smiled, remembering my first day at Sterling and Wright. Because sometimes the best way to create change is from within. Besides, I gestured to the office around us. There's value here. Experience, relationships, understanding of traditional business, things that pure digital agencies often lack. It's not about destroying the old to build the new. It's about evolution. The transition wasn't smooth at first. Some employees couldn't adapt to the new culture of innovation and accountability. Others flourished, finally free to pursue ideas that had been previously dismissed as too radical. Jessica, surprisingly, became one of our strongest digital strategists once she stopped dismissing new ideas out of hand. Sandra's experience proved invaluable in managing traditional client relationships through the digital transformation process. 6 months after the acquisition, I stood in my real office, no longer hidden from my former colleagues, looking out over the city skyline. The merged company had already exceeded our projected growth targets. Our client list had doubled, combining Sterling and Wright's established base with Phantom Digital's innovative partners. On my desk sat a frame containing my old Sterling and Wright business card. Alex Chen, account manager, alongside my new one. Alexander Chen, CEO, Phantom Digital Group. It was a reminder that success isn't always about making noise or demanding recognition. Sometimes the quiet path of observation and strategic patience leads to the greatest victories. Victoria joined me for a coffee, both of us watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. Was it worth it? She asked. All those years of hiding your success. I thought about the lessons learned, the insights gained, the transformation now unfolding. Every minute, I replied. Because now we're not just changing one company, we're changing an entire industry's understanding of what's possible. The next morning, I walked into our weekly team meeting, now held in a state-of-the-art conference room with global video linking to our offices across Asia. The energy was different now. Ideas flowed freely, innovation was celebrated, and everyone understood that true success comes from seeing possibilities others miss. Mark's old office had been converted into an innovation lab where teams could experiment with emerging technologies. The wall still bore a small scratch from where he'd angrily cleared out his desk, unable to accept the new reality. Last I heard, he was still telling anyone who would listen that it was all some kind of trick. But the results spoke for themselves. Our campaigns were setting new industry standards. Traditional clients were embracing digital transformation in ways they never had before. The merger had created something greater than either company could have achieved alone. As I prepared for a video call with our Tokyo office, I noticed my old Honda keys still sitting in my desk drawer. I kept them as a reminder that sometimes the most powerful position isn't at the top of the hierarchy. It's wherever you can learn the most about creating meaningful change. The digital screens around the office displayed our latest campaigns, our growing client lists, and our industry-leading metrics. But more importantly, they showed something else. A culture where ideas were valued more than titles, where innovation mattered more than office politics, and where success was measured by impact rather than appearances. That, more than any acquisition or revelation, was the real transformation, and it was just the beginning. The quiet account manager they had underestimated had built an empire hidden in plain sight. But the real victory wasn't in proving them wrong. It was in creating something that proved what was possible when you looked beyond the surface and dared to imagine something better. As our global team meeting began, I smiled at the faces on the screen. Talented professionals from both legacy companies now working together to reshape the industry. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying what exists, but about building something so much better that the old ways become irrelevant. That's the thing about true success. It's not about who shouts the loudest or claims the most credit. It's about creating real value, understanding the deeper currents of change, and having the patience to build something that lasts. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one writing the future.